Welcome back to the What's More podcast. I'm your host, Quinton Harris. Our guest today is Janine Stange, a motivational speaker, singer, and on-air personality best known for her historic journey to sing the Star-Spangled Banner in all 50 states, a mission she embarked on to honor our brave. Her story has been featured on every major television network and is the subject to a documentary series, National Anthem Girl, streaming on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. What was the motivation behind this?
There was a moment.
Okay.
So back when I was living in Los Angeles, I was pursuing a music career. And the music industry, it's not what it used to be. And I remember there was this moment that there was a paradigm shift for me. My mom, I got the phone call, and usually life changes in that instant. I found out that she had breast cancer and stage 4. So I moved back. I left everything. I didn't know how long this was going to be, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to be by her side. It ended up being for 9 months I was with her. And I watched her go through some paradigm shifts in her own life, things that she had procrastinated on. And then she would, kind of like think about it. I remember one time we were sitting in the living room as after a particularly tough day of chemo. And she said, whenever we went to a nice restaurant and there was a lobster special, I'd always want to order it, but I'd always say, when there's a special enough occasion, then I'll order the lobster. And unfortunately, she passed a couple of months after that, and it resonated with me like, wow, like how many of us have lobsters in our own life? When my mom passed and I was there in the aftermath, I started to think like, what in the world can I do that would be giving back, that would be natural for me? I sang that song in a few states, and I started to think, I wonder if anybody ever sang it in every state. I Googled.
Right, and Dr. Googled it.
Yes, and you know what? I found out nobody did it ever. This wasn't something anybody did.
When you think of battles like that, I immediately went back to my own grandmother. We all have someone in our lives that's been touched by that.
Yeah.
And I know that paradigm you were talking about. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
And I feel like it's important to always share those things, because most of the time, people are sitting there saying, what am I going to do when this happens to me?
Right.
Or how am I going to handle whatever it is? So it's like almost like better to say, like, interface with these things now rather than just be blindsided by things, or blindsided by the fact that you put off so many things in your life that now you can't, you're sitting there saying, why did I wait? What was the point?
Yeah. And I love the fact that you were doing it to honor our brave, to honor the people that have served and currently serving. It's very important. And I think that means a lot to many people in many different ways, right?
Yeah.
And so you go to all 50 states, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I imagine, if I had to guess, not all places you sang the national anthem were created equally or looked or felt the same.
No one was handing me events and saying, here you go, until, there was that national news moment where everybody wanted me to do stuff. But in the beginning, it's just you and your laptop, and you got to remember why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah.
And I love that.
And at the same time, you have to, I always say this, if you don't have skin in the game, you are not going to fight tooth and nail to get it done. And I felt like this was this mission I was on. It was something that I was doing. I believed in it. I did not know. I mean, these are things that just occur. Like, I was going kind of like, all right, as I have enough money, I'm going to hit different states. And then I realized that the national anthem was turning 200. Let's see, I found that out in January, and I was like, okay, that I have until September to get, so now, what I learned about setting goals and different things like that is you also need to have some type of time frame that people will hold you to. So the more interviews that I did on TV and radio, telling people, it was just okay, there is nothing that's going to stop me. If I had to hitchhike, I would have. But there were times when it was just when you're by yourself that you have to remember your why, your mission, your reason. And it is important to take moments during those journeys to kind of regroup and recalibrate, because otherwise you just get lost. And a lot of people set goals and they don't reach them. And a lot of times I believe it has to do with the fact that they don't line up with their core values. We don't take the time to say, what is it that makes me tick? We don't do that. We watch what everybody else tells us that makes them tick, and we follow their Instagram stories, but we don't follow ours. And why is that? You wonder, what is it? Well, it's because it's a lot of introspection. It's a lot of places that you have to go that are not comfortable for you, because you may have to change. You may have to adjust.
Well said.
So,
we had a guy on the podcast, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Steve Tufts, and he came in and said the same thing. He said, listen, putting yourself out there, committing to goals, putting a time frame on it, right? He goes, most people treat goals like a checklist, like a New Year's resolution. They just list things they want to do, but there's no path to get there.
No.
And there's no time. Like I want to lose weight, but they don't talk about how much weight they want to lose. Then they don't break down how they're going to do it. Right. They don't. So because of that, they fall short.
Yes.
And to your point, you went out there, you committed yourself, you started doing interviews, you put timelines on yourself, you put commitments, and you said, I'm accountable. Now I'm accountable because I've said this, I have to do it.
And this is the important thing is like you set the big goal, but then it's the minutia. And then I think what works really well for me to kind of explain the nature of figuring out how to do things is because for me, it was bite-sized pieces. It was 50 states. It was one state at a time, and it was mundane and in some fun things. But, you're on stage for 90 seconds, and the rest of it is just like, whoa, But it is developing the habits, showing up every time you have to be ready to do it.
I got a guy in my office. He says this all the time, and I wish I could steal it from him and make it mine. But he's like, I'm always like, hey, you ready? He's like, man, I don't need to get ready. I stay ready. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Hats off to you on that one. But sounds like kind of where you're at there. Stay ready. In any
career, you have to be ready. Otherwise, people will find somebody else instantaneously. It's like the sense of urgency.
Yeah, no. And I love this. And something you said earlier that I just want to kind of go back in and unpack that I don't think the audience may have caught on to was you self-financed this journey. You weren't sponsored. You didn't have this, you didn't have people funding this for you because I heard you say I had to book flights, I had to make travel. So you did this all on your own
I didn't
dime.
know how it was going to happen. I just knew that I was going to do it. And again, that's where you then break everything down and you're like, okay, I had some Sky Miles.
Okay.
Thanks to Delta, I was able to get through all 50 states, and I am very grateful for the fact that a woman, her name is Heather Nauert. She used to be on Fox and Friends, and she saw me, the power of social media. She had sent me a DM and said, I just saw what you were doing. Are you taking pictures of where you're going? I'm like, pictures? I've got a
docuseries.
Yeah. So she had me on, and that was at State 27. And I put together, I remember 6 a.m., like I launched the Indiegogo, I think it was, or the crowdfunding was just beginning. And I launched it, and I was like, okay, God, please help me. And there were enough people. I raised enough money. And again, I will say this, a lot of times people are always waiting for that dream scenario. It was not a dream scenario. I was calling places and just saying hey, like, what? You want to come to Alaska? We don't pay you. That's the other thing. People probably thought I was getting paid. I didn't care about that. But it was very much me trusting. And I think that's the other thing is you learn, the fears and the doubts of any type of goal you set, they're never going to go away. The important thing to do is continue to move in spite of it. And also, I tell people, plan to have the LW, which is the last word, to those chirpy fears and doubts that go on like, no. Your dad never did it. You're never going to do it. Or you know what? If you even try to do this, everybody's going to be talking about you. You do know that because you're not really smart enough, or fill in the blank of whatever it is, that playlist that immediately launches. I always tell people, what you need to do is know that this is how this goes in this constant scenario. You can continue to go around and around the mountain, or you can say, you know what? I know what's going to happen whenever I try to exit a comfort zone. So I've got the response. Yeah. And then, okay, you know what? Quinton, of course, Quinton, you're going to feel nervous about launching this podcast. I mean, stay in your lane. What are you doing? And then you start to, hold on a second. Of course, you're going to be nervous about that, but that's normal, right? How many other hard things have you done in life? And you literally kind of get on your level as if you were a 5-year-old kid scared to get up at bat. And you have that conversation. It's like a tool, like where you literally are saying, okay, that's fine. And then all of a sudden, it's amazing how your blood pressure goes down. You calm down and you're like, all right, you know what? That's okay. One foot in front of the other.
People that endure a lot to get to a certain place, they've all have these notes, these tidbits, these tea leaves of success, which is why I love having people on this show, because you get to hear the different ones. And sometimes not all of them resonate. But by the time you hear a lot of them, they all start to come together.
It's a matter of who that person in the audience is going to receive it from.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's me. I don't know if it was the accent.
No. Sometimes, it all starts, like you said, you hear enough of it, it resonates, and everybody's getting a piece of it at some point, which I love, and I think it's wonderful.
This is where I tell people, you want to stay safe, but there's so much more when you have no idea. And the most adventure comes when you're like, you've got this idea, it leads you on this adventure, and sometimes it's hard, and other times you're just like, man, I can't wait to tell everybody.
This is one of those things where you connect with people, and then not only that, like everything you want is on the other side of fear. I try to embark upon my kids all the time. Don't be fearful, play fearless. Be cautious, but play fearless and have fun.
And it's important to be keen on why you're feeling that resistance. There's like Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. I always tell people about this book. I remember reading it. It's just like on the other side of all of these types, there's a reason why you need to really say, well, why am I feeling this way? Why is there this big, no, don't run towards that? Keeping in mind that it isn't about seeing, like you see where you have to go, but you're never going to take this big, huge leap to get there. And some people are like, oh, that must have happened overnight. You could say this about your business. That must have been the longest night I ever had. Because it takes that whole thing of putting down the roots. This is not rocket science, and that's what I think people want to hear, some silver or magic bullet, whatever the right word is. There isn't. And a lot of time when I'm giving my talk, I'm like, guys, I just explained all this stuff, and clearly, like what I'm telling you here is work.
Right.
You got to be willing to do the work, and if you don't want it enough, then you better change. You're going to just be unfulfilled for the rest of your life. Figure out what it is that makes you tick.
When I'm interviewing someone and, for a job, it never fails. Depending on the age group of that person, the younger they are, the quicker they want to be the CEO, which I love the passion, I love the desire, but there's this timeline it takes to get there. We talked a little bit about this. Everybody sees where you are now, not all this struggle and the things you had to overcome to get there, which is, why I love stories. I love hearing people's stories because I love hearing what they had to go through, endure, and challenges they overcome. It's what I think helps drive me to be better and also other people to be better as well.
Today's episode is brought to you by Texana Bank Mortgage. They're coming to the table with a revolutionary product. It's called REMLO, Real Estate Mortgage Loan Originator. And what they are doing is they are taking real estate agents and they're taking loan officers, and for the first time in history, they're putting them together under one umbrella. They're actually taking two industries right now that sit on top of each other, and they're putting them together and backing it by a full-service bank licensed in all 50 states. So imagine this, you're not just an agent anymore, you're a full-service agent. You're the single trusted point of contact for your client in this entire process. You're seeing the loan and the home search front to end. It's going to change the dynamic of real estate and mortgage lending together. Now, if you're a real estate agent, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to askaboutremlo.com. That's askaboutremlo.com. Because what you're going to find there are significant details about this program, how to enroll, and how to gather more information. So if you're ready to adapt and thrive, go to askaboutremlo.com. That's askaboutremlo.com.
I love the fact that you talk about overcoming challenges through disruption.
Yeah.
And you talk about momentum mindset through disruption. Now, we are living in a very disruptive world right now, whether it's social media, whether it's the regular media. I mean, it's a disruptive environment right now. So I know you're getting ready to go speak to a group of real estate agents. And I love speaking. And I know they're going through some disruption, right?
A little bit.
Just a little bit right now. Just a little bit. So, but let's talk about that mindset. Mindset through disruption, how to be successful with the positive mindset through disruption. Walk us through that.
I call it DROP, D-R-O-P-P.
Okay.
Here we go. This is not a magic bullet, though. This is just the reality. Is the first thing I think that is important after a situation maybe where you had expectations that weren't met or whatever it is like decompress. Mm-hmm. Actually give yourself some space between that situation and, yourself. Now, a lot of times if you're a tenacious person, which you are, and a lot of people probably listening are the same mind, it's like, no, stay there until it's done. But sometimes it's like the counterintuitive way to do, just get up and decompress. And then the next thing to do is reconcile. Reconcile with what actually occurred, not living in the fantasy, like in the denial, or hoping like, oh yeah, it's just something magical is going to happen. That's just not the case. So the quicker we're able to reconcile and be realistic about it, the better we are at then we're at a different perspective, and you could observe. You could actually see, well, a little bit further down the road, you could see a little bit in the past, like what exactly is the stuff that I need to do? And then from that point, you're able to prepare and plan. And I always say the other thing is promise. So there's an extra P, because you want to make yourself accountable. But a lot of times what we do is we just want to skip. And then that choice to rise is not really actually able to incubate. And we just run into the next thing. And a lot of times it's emotion that we're running from, because we don't put space between it. We just push it down and keep going. And it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah, it's usually volatile and not good.
I think once you latch on to something that's bigger than yourself, it gives you the reason, the wherewithal to say, hold on a second, there are people depending on me. There's a story that I have to tell that I need to make sure I'm showing up. So you're going to show up for yourself. You're going to commit to showing up for yourself. Who else will if you won't?
Ooh, I love that one. I love it. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will.
No,
Like, we talk about that all the time on here.
If you're still, that's like kind of like, think about like a Navy SEAL. You're still, but you've got a plan. You're able to see things. You have a perspective. You're able to also be dynamic. You can still move in that. So being still and being stuck are two different animals. And a lot of times we're scared of being still. That's why we get stuck. In the industry, how everything in the real estate world is just feels like, what is going on? I think the people that want to hang on to what it used to be and that old model or whatever, however they used to do things, they're not going to change. Well, things are going to continue to move anyway. You know, just because we had a personal tragedy or a personal upending of our own career, the world still still spins.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop going, oh, what happened with that, the real estate.
Yeah, and going back to what you said with the reconcile, reconciling what's going on in your industry and realizing that hoping it'll get better, hope's not a strategy.
No.
It's not one at all.
No.
And, so to your point, you got to accept it, you got to be prepared to move on.
And the people that are prepared, like, look, it's like what Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. Well, putting systems and structure in place isn't for you to be able to, sure, provide for yourself, but you can also help others. And isn't that what life is all about? Like, why do we have these gifts and talents? Why did we have this certain subset of even experiences in our life if it isn't to help others? And I guess the other part of that is when people hinge too much on the accolades of it.
Yep, the reaffirmation. Yep.
But the most important thing is exactly what you're saying. When you have that person come up to you, after coming off the stage speaking and you're just like listening to their story and it's like humbling. And I say that, a lot of people love to say that, but it's true because you're like, holy macaroni, this is why I do what I do. And it hits you. Like, I got to tell this story about my mom, not it's therapeutic for me, not that, but because somebody needed to hear it. And you cannot discount the importance and the gravity that there is in knowing that you're at that place for them.
Yeah.
That's just amazing, to be able to do that. But it wouldn't happen if you're like, wait, you know what? I'm going to sit back and hope other people see that I can, speak or see that I have this podcast. No, you gotta go out there and do it. Remember your motive, because when the lights in this nice studio go off and you're back to, whatever it is that you're doing and dealing with some people, I always like to use this phrase, calm is contagious.
Ooh.
And that's what they tell all the SEALs when they're training is calm is contagious.
Okay.
You have the opportunity to do one of two things when you are dealing with the environment, the ever-changing world of real estate and mortgages, whatever it is who are you? Like, your through line, like, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are and the values that you bring to the table. You are who you are in every instance. That's why you're successful, because you're not changing according to, I'm going to handle it this way or whatever. And the point about calm being contagious is that when everything is going all over the place, you've already taken the time to put systems and structure in place so you know how to react to it. And you're not going to just be dictated to on how you're going to, like, oh my gosh, everything's crazy, let's all just freak out. Nope. The calm and methodical person is who everybody looks to. And I just always say, the other side of it is, if, calm is contagious, crazy.
Yeah.
We know that's contagious too. So it's a matter of taking that breath, taking that pause, taking the time to decompress and say, wait a second, who am I? Remember that, because you're not going to be able to be anybody else, even though you could try. And then you take your steps, carve the path.
I got to ask, between the Navy SEALs and your mom, I sense there's a high level of influence amongst, your career with them.
Yeah.
Is there another person or another thing that influenced your process of doing what you've done throughout your career?
So, I talk about this. There's a guy, his name was Mr. Valentine. And when I was in high school, I was a freshman, he gave this talk, and, you have those assemblies, and I'll never forget it. He said this to the entire school, but to me, it felt like I was the only person he was talking to. And he said, within you is the ability to do exploits, something uncommon with your life. And he said, you don't have these gifts and talents, the ability to do these exploits because of yourself. You have them because the world needs them. And then he challenged us. He said, I want you to go home and write down those uncommon things that you will do with your life. Now, I've never told him how much that impacted me. I talk about Mr. Valentine every keynote I give because it changed the way I thought, because it made me make decisions saying, I committed. First of all, he made you use other senses, right? Like you hear it and then like I wrote it down, and there's something to say about the word integrity and how if you continually lie to yourself and say, I'm going to do this, and you never do it, even your whole body is going to be like, she's lying. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning early and work out. Okay. Have fun with that. Don't hold your breath. So him saying that to me, and well, to everybody, but I took it personally. I remember I wrote down what I would do. And it was for the first time I ever said that I was going to sing and I was going to use the platform to help others. Now, that's also where the when then statement came in, where I said, I'm going to make it big, then I'm going to give back. What I then started to realize by having that influence where there was that moment is that I was always thinking, no, I'm different. I identified with that moment, and I was like, no, I'm not going to make that choice. I'm not going to get caught up in running around all these other things. I would be in my basement. I was learning classical music at the time and singing nonstop to the point where my brother would call downstairs, like, shut up, but I felt like, no, I have to do what people that are successful do. And that is not always hanging out with everybody and, sitting around. I didn't have Instagram at the time, but scrolling on Instagram.
Yeah. No, I mean, that
was another guy that had influence.
That's awesome. And I always ask that question because, you just never know where this, for our audience, you just never know where that moment's going to come from. I love the energy. I love the message. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And guys, if you haven't got a chance, check out the National Anthem Girl streaming on Apple TV and on Amazon. Check it out.
No, Kelly's Filmworks, they're out of Kentucky. They actually became good friends of mine. And the story of how they did it was they saw me on the news and they contacted me and said, if you haven't sung in Kentucky yet, come and sing for the Louisville Bats. They filmed me, and then they came to Nashville to film me for the 50th state. And then 2 years later, they're like, hey, has anybody asked to do a documentary on your story? And I was like, who would want to do that? And then they said, well, we would like to. And then 2 years later, they put it out. And they always ask me to tell people to review it. But to your audience, listen, if you liked it, review it. But if you didn't like it, don't bother. There you go. So, hey, we'll have the links to that on our YouTube channel at What's Your One More with the number 1. Check that out. It'll be on there along with our show notes, along as information to get in contact. So you want to give us information on how, if they want to book you as a guest speaker for their next company event? Yes. Let's go for it. So my website is Janine Stange. I speak for all different associations, all different companies. I love realtors. I could speak that language because I understand that the buck stops with you and you have to constantly be motivated. Healthcare, banking, pretty much any industry. If you need somebody to come and talk, I absolutely. I still obviously love traveling. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've got a slew of customers that you've spoken for on your website. You can see it all over there. I mean, Fortune 500 companies, list goes on and on. It's a wonderful message. Check out the clips on there. They give you a nice preview of what you talk about. It's a wonderful website. You've done a great job. Hats off on that. And I just want to say thanks for spending some time with us on the show today. It was great having you on here. Thank you so much. And you are doing a great job. And I'm proud of you for what you're doing, taking the time to do this. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, please 5-star review this podcast on your favorite platform that you listen to your podcasts on, specifically on Apple Review. If you would, leave us a review, and then check us out on our YouTube channel at What's Your One More. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next episode, we'll see you at What's Your One More.
I got one more shot, I'm gonna make it. One more chance, I'm gonna take it. I meant it when I said it, now it's time for me to do it. I got one life to live, so I put my all into it, yeah.